This is a City AM Studios production.
Hello and welcome back to Business as Usual, brought to you by Oxa with me, Matt Kenyon.
And me, Martin Kimber. Coming up on the podcast, uranium fever. An Italian mining company prepares to power the London Stock Exchange with nuclear fuel.
We're officially halfway through the year, so we'll take a look at how that woozy London stock market has performed so far in 2026.
Plus, could Canary Wharf be bouncing back? Barclays signing a 999-year lease would certainly suggest so.
So, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We have got some big city stories coming up. Also, a couple of more eccentric ones today. So
it certainly is business as usual on this podcast.
Yes, I think we've cranked up the eccentric dial a bit, and I'm not complaining. And because who better to dive into this markets matrix than our own mercantile minx, Simon.
Good morning. First day of July, start of silly season, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
so.
well, we've got about 8 weeks of this.
Well, your tie would certainly suggest so, Simon. That's
yes, it's got
It's
lovely.
Paul Smith,
it's got lovely little flowers on it, but it's also a Paul Smith. Simon, to kick us off with something a bit more serious and less eccentric, why is it that a group of house builders are in line for a £4.5 billion lawsuit?
So this is a class action that's been brought by a number of homeowners that's been led by the former legal affairs manager at Consumer Group, Which, and as everyone knows, when Which get involved in something, there's reasons to be rattled. And they allege that a group of house builders, including Barrett Redrow, Persimmon, Vistry, Taylor Wimpey, and a couple of others, were effectively overinflating house prices. And they allege that there is a breach of UK competition law. Now, we should say it's not the case that people put the chances of this $4.5 billion lawsuit of success at particularly high. I don't think there's an expectation that they're going to win this case. We don't really know. But it has taken it's clear that house builders have taken a hit in terms of their share prices, a sell-off across the board of these house builders. And I think that just goes to show that these house builders have had such a difficult few months, you know, with the UK's falling behind on its national house building target, with them being hit by massive rises to energy prices, to the cost of just simple things like bricks, that even though people don't necessarily expect this lawsuit to succeed, just the negative news flow alone is enough for these stocks to take another hit.
Simon, why is a family of Italian aristocrats hunting for uranium deposits in Lombardy, northern Italy?
Uranium fever has gone and got me down. Uranium fever is spreading all around.
That's a very good question. So who knew? I mean, you know, when you head to northern Italy, you're not really thinking about nuclear energy, or you're not thinking about nuclear deposits. But it turns out that this is an area of Italy that is ripe for minerals that can be used in nuclear power. And the wider context here is that since the outbreak of war in Ukraine, Europe is very acutely aware of its energy dependency on Russia. And so any project that can look to reduce that dependency suddenly has become a lot more attractive to governments, attractive to investors. And this particular company called Reveil Resources is planning to float on London's small cap Aquis exchange in the coming days. And its plan is to reopen a uranium mine that was shut as far back as the 1980s. I think it first opened in the 50s. Then, obviously, Chernobyl happened, and there was a sort of Europe-wide aversion to
that was kind of
power.
the Chernobyl was the Chernobyl for nuclear energy.
Well, yes.
It was probably the ultimate kind of business case of the wrong lessons being learned from a disaster.
So that mine was shut pretty soon after that in the 80s, and it's been closed ever since. And they plan to reopen it, and then, as I say, they'll be listed on the Aquis, and we'll be able to track their progress.
Simon, one more thing. From uranium cakes to celebration cakes. A story that we were talking about earlier, which I think disturbed me more than anything else we've talked about this week. People are getting cakes with ultrasounds printed on them. Why are they doing that, and how many people are doing that?
I mean, I certainly can't answer you why. I can can tell you more.
No. I want you to get stuck into why as well.
So I've been speaking this week to the chief executive of a company called Cakebox, which is one of the biggest bakery chains in the UK. It's got hundreds of stores up and down the country. And on their website now, they have a listing for an ultrasound cake. So you can order ultrasound cakes which have on the top of them a printed photo of an ultrasound scan that you get at the hospital.
Which you presumably then chop up and eat.
The cake, yes.
Yeah.
So I spoke to the chief executive. He told me that this is a new craze that started in the last few months where people are using ultrasound cakes as gender reveals. So you cut the cake open with the ultrasound scan on it, and it's either pink or blue or whatever else, and you use that as the celebration. And I had a look on Google Trends. Basically, before last year, there were 0 searches for ultrasound cake, but it's now really taken off. I think this is another of these things where people see examples of it on TikTok, and then suddenly it becomes a real phenomenon.
I do feel like gender reveal parties were one of the worst American imports that we've accepted.
I completely agree. I
So
find them bizarre.
This feels very post-COVID. It feels like another excuse to create a sort of social media moment out of rites and passions of life, because you've already got, I suppose, baby showers, you've got engagement parties, you've got weddings that actually lead up to these. So we're now looking at sort of 5 sets of parties just in the case of union and production of one child. That's insane.
It is a bit. It is a bit.
These things can go up to 50 quid.
Apparently so.
I'm surprised they're not going for more than that.
But yeah, demand
moly.
is very hot for them, apparently. The other thing that's seen huge demand in cake box is something which, again, I had not heard of, called Dubai cake. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh, is this like viral Dubai chocolate?
Yes. So it turns out it's actually chocolate where it's a chocolate cake where instead of having layers of chocolate, you have layers of pistachio in the middle of the cake. And that's, again, really flying off the shelves at the moment, apparently. And the chief executive of Cakebox told me that they had to order so many pistachios, to meet this demand. There was a temporary UK-wide shortage of them.
If anyone noticed that on the shelves.
There was, yes, I noticed there was yes.
You actually noticed that?
Well, I noticed a shortage of the pistachio creme that you can buy from M&S.
Yeah, so I think it's another example of...
betrays my shopping habits.
Trends can just pop up so quickly now on things like TikTok, and they actually move markets and move commodities and supply
I think
chain.
it reflects a broader, like, Gen Z, younger millennial culture towards hospitality as well, where it's that culture of, rather than going to buy as many pints at the pub, people are going to buy one incredibly eccentric cocktail and take pictures of it. But something quite boomer. I think that is a thing.
Yeah, I think the difficulty from a sort of business perspective is these trends happen so quickly, but they can also die very quickly. So how on earth do you prepare for it? How do you decide what your supply chains be, how much you order? Because, something might be fire for a month and then just disappear.
I think you cut a cake and see what it tells you to do, to be honest. Simon, thank you very much for coming in for an absolute classic of the genre of a corporate roundup at the top of the programme. Coming up after the break, we're halfway through the year. We'll take a look at how your money is doing on the London stock market. Don't go away.
This episode is brought to you by Okta. AI agents are everywhere now, quietly making decisions across organisations. That's great until you stop and think, who's in charge?
If you don't know who an agent is, what it's connected to, or what it's allowed to do, you can't really trust it to act in your interests. That's the bit Okta focuses on. They secure the identity of AI agents, so there's one clear layer of control across the whole system.
Which means every agent has a clear identity, permissions, and a line of accountability, even as things scale.
Risk becomes something you manage, not guess at. Secure every agent, secure any agent. Okta secures AI.
Welcome back. Matt, good news.
Oh, yeah?
Christmas is only 6 months away.
It's just around the corner.
And you know what that means? We're officially into H2, halfway through the year. It's been 6 months of wars, tech bubbles, heat waves, and jet fuel shortages. So it's time to ask, if I'd invested £100 in the UK stock market on the 1st of January 2026, how rich would I be today? To tell us how well the FTSE 100 has fared so far this year, we're joined by Michael Hunter. Michael, I've put 100 quid in 6 months ago. How much have I got now?
You've got £105.40.
Woof.
So that's enough for a pint of something pretty ordinary in the oyster shed, or something a bit nicer in any one of London's many Wetherspoons.
I'm old enough to remember back in January when the FTSE passed that barrier of 10,000 for the first time, an all-time high. How's it fared since then?
It's not done incredibly well, It's not been a stunning performance, but it hasn't been too bad. So we went through that round number that everyone's been keeping an eye on. Traders, journalists love a round number. We went through 10,000 points clean in January, never done before. And when we got higher still, the FTSE 100 reached 10,911 points roughly in February, and has not been back to there since because...
Yeah, so 28th of February, obviously, war in Iran starts.
Where were you when the war in Iran started?
I think it was a Saturday night, and I think I was at a party, and I remember seeing it on the BBC Live blog and thinking,
You're checking the BBC Live
blog. I think I
Saturday night
studiously
at a
had
party.
push notifications set up on the BBC just so I wasn't missing anything major. I remember looking at that and thinking, I think that could be quite major.
I remember thinking, that'll blow over. I was on holiday and I was like, this will be fine.
I think there's something particularly depressing about this year for the first year. Obviously, there are bright spots. I'm sure we can go on to them as well.
Sure.
How it does feel like when we get these big economic shocks, often relate to energy shocks, there is just something particularly exposed about UK and its equities. Like there have been, obviously not direct parallels, but some echoes of February of 2022.
Yes.
When obviously that was far more inflationary, but sort of that sense that the UK is particularly exposed, especially because I know you've mentioned before that actually the US stock markets and their indices have fared a little better than our own here.
Sure. So the US has got a bigger market anyway, more liquidity, and a huge tech sector. London does not have a huge tech sector, has a small tech sector, but London has a massive global footprint with resource stocks, particularly mining companies, lots of big old school firms, and those firms tend to be particularly badly exposed to economic shocks. So copper miners, for instance, look at a demand decline, a serious steep demand decline during an economic shock or a period of uncertainty, while gold miners might make up a little bit for a rally there. It can be a bit push me, pull you, as markets always are. But London can look and can expose and can be underperformed during these turbulent times. There's something else going on under the tin here as well, though, because much of that gain, which generates from your £100, Matt, a nice tidy pint, has come from what I would call a sort of FTSE 100 bargain basement bid bonanza.
Right.
So we have
That's a lovely phrase.
had $150 billion in offers for FTSE 100 companies of all different kinds, largely because UK stocks relative
such a low
globally
base
have been undervalued and people are snapping up bargains. Without that UK growth, with this lingering post-Brexit uncertainty of where that will come from, with the domestic political turmoil, which has obviously been less dramatic than the global geopolitics, but nonetheless just as important, the people who are buying UK stocks are trying to snap up bargains internationally. The market looks undervalued. It's struggling to keep up with its peers. But again, as markets always do, that provides an opportunity. So the second half of the year, maybe we will take out that high again. We're kind of within touching distance now, and maybe we'll get a broader growth, a rising tide, which will lift more of the boats than just the ones that look as though they're cheap.
Well, we can only hope so. I remember I was at a JP Morgan Christmas drink several years ago, and I was speaking to a few of the analysts, and I said, everyone's saying FTSE is so cheap, is this where I should be putting my money? Are we due for a resurgence? And the guy just said, yeah, they say that every year. And it doesn't come true. But it kind of has this year.
And it sort of has, and it kind of will. The same thing's often said about European equities as well. The tech growth story needs a yang to its yin. There has to be something else out there as well. But if you just look at the list of names from the FTSE 100 who've been at the subject of those bids, Segro, Schroders, Beazley, Intertech, DCC. So 12 billion, nearly 13 billion, 9 billion, nearly 10 billion, over 8 billion, nearly 11 billion, and 6 billion respectively. So an awful lot of that 5.4% gain is wrapped up in that kind of M&A. And this isn't big growth M&A, this is bargain hunting M&A. And I think those two things are genuinely different, and we'll see how different the London market remains for the rest of the year.
I suppose one of the big stories of this year has been the number of constituents that the FTSE is losing. On a more hopeful side, do you think there are any big IPOs we could be looking out for in H2 of this year?
Well, the IPO lack of situation in London has been a major theme for a long period of time. I mean, it's not for a humble market reporter like me to necessarily
And
sort
it's
of
unfair on me
spot these
to make
things
you
coming.
speculate, but
I think,
But we will.
yeah, but that won't stop me.
I think for London, there's a more important issue than that, even if it's one that doesn't grab as many headlines from the likes of us and our colleagues elsewhere in the industry, not just here at City AM, but the pipeline for new entrants to the market lower down, the minnows that become the whales of the future. That is where the government needs to concentrate fire, government of any colour. That's where the pipeline needs to open up again in order to keep those huge giant firms developing and the ones of the future to come in. If you're reliant on more speculative SpaceX-style multi-billion blockbuster floats, those are all going to happen in the States now. There's more liquidity there. The story for London is that some firms are eyeing putting their listings in New York on the same footing as in London and all of that kind of thing. In order to get around all of that bleak outlook for IPOs and floats, the best thing to do is for a long-term approach to helping open up that supply of capital into the square mile, what London has always done historically so very, very well. And we need some political attention and some regulatory attention at that end of the market. And it looks like there are some changes to that effect coming and being discussed in various political circles, and that could make all of the difference medium and long term.
Well, Michael, I'm going to have to stop you there, or else Andy Burnham's going to snap you up as an economic advisor, and you'll be, which is a group fast growing. So thank you very much for coming in. Hopefully see you very soon.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, reports of Canary Wharf's demise have been greatly exaggerated. Or at least that is the strong impression that Barclays has given. They have just signed a 990-year lease. That means, by my count, they will still be in Canary Wharf in the year 3025. I'm not sure any of us will be alive that long.
What iPhone will we be on by then?
God, yeah. That's the benchmark.
Well, Sam, you can't speak yet. I haven't introduced you. Joining us now is our senior city reporter and resident wharf watcher,
Canary
Sam
down
Norman.
the coal mine.
Canary in the coal mine.
Fantastic.
Sam, tell us about this massive, nearly millennium lease.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting move. I mean, the millennium aspect to it is it's kind of Canary Wharf, the nitty-gritty of how the deals work there. So interestingly, you can't really get a freehold as you would if you just bought the building. And that's to do with how tall the buildings are. So the land underneath is still owned by the original property owners. But because of how tall the buildings are, I think it's to do with like the airspace. You're not actually allowed to just get a freehold on them. So hence they've got this massive leasehold. But obviously the bigger story here is it's part of Canary Wharf's resurgence. We've seen over the last 12 months, a lot of these financial services firms from fintech, payments, banks are all just kind of flooding in, doubling down on this area, except maybe one. Come onto that. But yeah, it's quite a widespread.
Because there had been a bit of a retreat at one stage away from Canary Wharf, sort of post-pandemic.
A big focus on residential for quite a long time.
Yeah, and I think you're just sort of seeing that spread now. But you're right, there had been this sort of retreat. Leading that was obviously HSBC, and they're still ploughing ahead with this move back more towards the city. Now, there's obviously a lot of shenanigans with that. There's been this whole crisis that they don't have enough desks in the new office, so they're still working out of the big tower there. And obviously, if you're in that tower, it's enormous. Like so much so, you go up to a certain floor and you can sort of feel the wind.
So that was for a while the tallest building in.
Well, it will be as unless the JP Morgan tower goes ahead, which, as it stands now, we're expecting it to go ahead. It's going to be a £10 billion tower built out of Canary Wharf.
And that was going to be a sort of the Shard.
Yeah, that's going to be enormous. It just got clearance actually the other month from the London City Airport because it's going to be that big. It needs airport clearance. But there's a whole debate: will that go ahead because they're wanting business rates exemption? So that will be like, I guess, the crown jewel in Canary Wharf's resurgence.
Because Rachel Reeves had been the one pushing for quite a lot of this development.
Yeah,
and now she's kind of out. So what's the take there?
Well, like I said, I think like the JP Morgan Tower would be like the real crown jewel in this sort of like resurgence. But a lot of that was coming. I mean, Jamie Dimon said, "I will not build this tower if the UK becomes hostile to banks again." Now, what does he define as hostile? Is that we're going to tax you more, or is it we're not actually going to give you exemptions? I don't know, but it's Dimon's world, and we're all just living in it. So,
I was in Canary Wharf the other weekend to visit that new Lido, flipping cold water, but it was really nice. And I noticed I hadn't actually seen the Revolut Tower in person.
That's amazing.
And
Great tower.
it's not that tall, but it still kind of looks like the Eye of Sauron.
It's
Yeah,
a
it
fantastic
looms.
tower as well. Like, I mean, I was in there for their HQ launch, and it's an impressive building. And like, yeah, it's kind of back in terms of like financial. I mean, you've got Zopa, another fintech. They moved there, and they doubled their office footprint when they moved to Canary Wharf last year. So like, people are going
Which
there.
is bizarre because it's such a soulless place.
Well, that's the yeah. So do you think it will ever have enough of a vibe to really convince
So-
people that it's
Are you thinking that though because you associate with like the old school bankers?
No, I associate it with quite a lot of the architecture isn't that nice to look at. I don't get any Google Maps signal there.
That is annoying.
I-
Yeah.
There's no pubs.
There's no hospitality there that I can't go to in the city or in Soho or anywhere else. Like it has very little USPs for me aside from
feels
if
like
I-
an airport.
If City AM moved the
Yeah.
office there, that would be the only reason I'd ever have to go there.
Okay, but based off like your like vibes-based perception of that, do you think like some of these fintechs who are moving there are a bit more like agile, a bit more like flexible, maybe they might create a presence with that?
Yeah.
maybe? And you know what? We've got 1,000 years to find out whether this benefits. We've also run out of time. So, Sam, thank you very much.
We're going to
Thank you very much.
cryogenically
Yeah.
freeze you now.
Our reporter for Canary AM.
Nice one.
Well, that's just about all we have time for. Thank you very much for listening to another Business as Usual brought to you by Okta.
And we've got some homework for you, and that homework is subscribe to our newsletters and don't forget to download our free app.
It's got everything those expensive news apps have, except ours is free. We'll be back in your podcast feeds tomorrow at 6 a.m, also for free. But for now, goodbye.
Goodbye.